everyone, my name is Marian Guevara. It's been a while. Since my last video, I've been very busy, and it's only now that I have gotten some time to actually sit down and film a video. I have many planned. I'm just trying to take these one at a time. So today I'll be doing a tag. It's been a while since I did a book tag, and it's the getting to know my reading taste tag. Since my last video, I've noticed that I've gotten some more subscribers, so huge thank you to anyone who has watched my videos or who has clicked subscribe. Thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. I'm very grateful. So I thought, for anyone who's new, I thought I'd do this tag to, give you an insight on more of my tastes. So let's just hop on to the first question. So that is, how do you rate books? So my star ratings are pretty standard fare. For one star, the book has to actively annoy me or just make me mad. For 2 stars, I reserve that for books that kind of just are meh, like they don't evoke any strong feelings, either negatively or positively. 3 stars, I liked it well enough. 4 stars, I really enjoyed it. And then 5 stars, it was amazing. It's, one of my favorites. And then my half stars, well, I distribute that, I don't want to say arbitrarily, but it really just depends on my feeling towards the book. It really is just based on a feeling. It's very subjective when it comes to my star ratings. So yeah. Number 2 is, how do you approach reviewing books? So you can find my reviews either on Goodreads or on Instagram. If you go onto my Instagram, I'll leave my username down below. If you see a post with a single book on it, like 99% of the time, that is a review. So when it comes to books that are like 4 to 5 stars, like that's how I rated them, the review tends to be more essay-ish. Like I point out or expound upon the themes of the story that particularly struck me, and I kind of go in depth on the emotions that were evoked out of me from the story. So yeah, it's very much an emotional type of essay. Once again, kind of personal, subjective. However, when it comes to books that are like 3.5, 3, 2, my reviews kind of change a bit, where I might list things that, okay, this is what I really liked about the book, what I liked, what I think the author did well, what I enjoyed, and then followed by things or like points that I just wasn't a fan of. And I might even include, maybe suggestions of, okay, this didn't work out for me, but maybe if the author did this, it would have worked better for me. So I do generally tend to be a lot more critical when it comes to like 3.5, 3-star, 2.5, 2-star books. However, I do want to preface by saying that these are just my opinions. A book could not work for me, but it could definitely work for you. I don't want a review of mine or a star rating of mine to ever discourage someone from trying out a book that they were initially interested in or really excited for. You know what? At the end of the day, you are your own best judge when it comes to your reading taste. I have read plenty of books where the Goodreads rating was just abysmal, and I'm thinking, why? Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, honestly, if a premise intrigues you, if a synopsis intrigues you, go ahead, try out that book. My ratings, my reviews are kind of just like for me. If it so happens that a review of mine really connects with you, that's great. But yeah, you should be your own judge when it comes to trying out these books. So number 3 is, what's the book that made you a reader? I have always been a reader. I have the accelerated reader program that I had in my elementary school to thank for encouraging me to be constantly reading. However, I do want to shout out this book because it is a significant milestone when it comes to my reading journey, and that is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is still one of my favorite books of all time. I read this in a very tumultuous time in my life. I graduated middle school. I went to the Philippines to study high school, and I had a hard time kind of adjusting to, not just living in a new country, but also studying there and getting used to the curriculum. One day, my mom, as a gift, gave me Jane Eyre when I was coming back from school, and I read it, and I just fell in love. This is definitely one of the books where I can firmly say that I fell in love with it. And it was the book that got me into reading classics. I have been reading a lot of fantasy recently, but I think for the longest time I have been a classics reader. And it's all thanks to Jane Eyre. This book was like written in the mid-19th century, but I just connected with it so much. And there were so many elements of it that I really enjoyed. I love, the gothic tone. It was a bildungsroman. I was rooting for our main character of Jane Eyre. The romance was intriguing. I've never done a video where I say like, oh, if you want to read classics, like these are the must-read classics that you have to read. I have kind of toyed with the idea of doing a video like that, but if I were to do a video of it, Jane Eyre would definitely be up there. I feel like it was the perfect stepping stone for me on my classics journey. And it really kind of just set me on a new trajectory when it came to my reading. So yeah, Jane Eyre, I have a lot to thank for when it comes to Jane Eyre. So the next question is, do you have a genre niche? Yes, I do. I really love weird fiction from like the late 19th century to the early 20th century. I mean, look, if you name drop terms like Lovecraftian, cosmic horror, if you mention like Arthur Machen and the Great God Pan, or R.D.B. Chambers and The King in Yellow, like you don't immediately have me, but you have, the foot is in the door, basically. You have my attention. Like, I'm immediately intrigued. My interest is piqued. So yeah, I really gravitate to that type of horror. Like, that's my niche. I absolutely love it. Number 5 is, do you generally prefer character-driven or plot-driven stories? This is tricky because, and I do feel that it is a bit of a cop-out answer, but I'm going to say like both. I don't want to commit to either one. So I do love a character-driven story, honestly. I would say, for instance, like Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier is very character-centric. You could say that when it comes to the plot, it's not necessarily heavy, but it's so rich in character, getting into the mindset of the protagonist. I really love that. But then at the same time, I also really like a plot-driven story as well. I adore a lot of classic sci-fi, and they're known for not having very, dynamic main characters. The appeal is mainly in the plot, in the themes and the ideas that are being explored. The characters themselves, might be, they're not as fully fleshed out as, we would want. However, I still end up loving those books. So I can't really say that I'm for either or. I do enjoy both, and it really is up to the execution of the author. So number 6 is, what's a book you love so much that you don't care if others don't like it? And I decided to go with Friday's Child by Georgette Heyer. For those who don't know, Georgette Heyer is considered by many to be like the progenitor of the, Regency romance, historical fiction, subgenre. People do recommend that if you finish Jane Austen, you should try out Georgette Heyer. She has a ton of Regency romances. I've read quite a number of them, but Friday's Child remains my favorite. It remains undefeated. When I read this years back, I was just so consumed by it. It's highly entertaining. It's one of the Heyers that are more bombastic. There are more Heyers that are like a bit more serious, but then they're the fun Heyers. And Friday's Child is definitely one of the more fun Heyers out there. This follows, or rather, it uses the marriage of convenience trope, and I just love the way it was used here. I really liked following our main couple. I also really enjoyed the side characters. Typically when it comes to romance, I just want to focus on the main couple. I feel like the side characters are kind of like, we're sidetracking, but I really enjoyed following the ones in here. They're funny. They're ridiculous, but they're funny. That's another thing about this book. I guess you could call it, it's ridiculous, but it's so much fun. And I got invested in this relationship. And yes, I know some of the criticism could be like our main hero. She's not a Lizzie Bennet. Let's just say that. She's not a Lizzie Bennet, but she's a bit airy, but she's a sweetheart. And yeah, I love Friday's Child. Even if this might be your least favorite Heyer, or you don't care for our main characters or the romance, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm still waiting for Folio Society to do a special edition of this. Please. So number 7 is, what's a book you love so much that if someone doesn't like it, your reading tastes don't align? Now, I do want to preface this by saying that if you don't love this book, that's completely fine. I'm sure you have very excellent reading taste. 2 people can read the same book and they get completely different things out of it. That's completely valid. However, I'm going to be answering Sunless Sands by Josiah Bancroft. If you are a new subscriber, you're going to be seeing this book and this series on this channel a lot. So yeah, just get accustomed to that. But I'm answering this because it's so intrinsically tied to my reading tastes. I feel that if you are a classics reader and you're trying to get into fantasy, maybe not necessarily like classic fantasy or older fantasy, obviously like Lord of the Rings, Gorman and Gast, or like Last Unicorn, any Patricia A. McKillop. But if you're a classics reader and you want to get into more modern fantasy and you don't know where to start, I would highly recommend the Books of Babel series by Josiah Bancroft. Not just because our main character, Senlin, comes from a very like pseudo-Victorian, Edwardian type of world, but I don't know, it's just Bancroft's prose. Like I felt, as I was starting the book, I felt I could ease into it very quickly, because his prose did remind me a bit of, the classics. Just, his beautiful turn of phrase, the imagery, it just worked out for me as a classics reader. Still on the Sands, or just the Books of Babel in general, are just my type of fantasy. If you could like perfectly craft the fantasy that is geared towards me, that is like made especially for me, it would be the Books of Babel series, honestly. And I just love how throughout the series, Bancroft is just blending genres together. It leaves for a very unique experience, and one that kind of just, I was just so blown away. It left me feeling unsatisfied when I went to other fantasy series. So I guess that's the one downside, but yeah, I love this book. I love this series. You're gonna quickly find out how much I love this series if you stick around. Number 8 is What's in Your Trash Pocket. So this is basically like what tropes, books, are bad, but you still enjoy, that you still enjoy reading anyway. I mean, you can have an entire discussion about like, what qualifies as bad, but I guess one trope that a lot of people don't like is miscommunication. Like characters are not communicating with one another and it's causing problems. I'm fine with that when it comes to classics. Like obviously, people are restrained by, the social norms at the time, okay? Maybe they're bound by honor to stay silent. Or maybe, you cannot just frankly express your feelings, whether it's, it's because of the mores of the time, or just you personally, as that's part of the character. And so when I'm reading a classic and I do come across like maybe it's like a couple and, they're not directly telling their feelings for one another or something like that, honestly, it's completely fine. Like, I don't have an issue with it. I don't have a problem with it. I know there might be some people like who read a classic and they do get annoyed by it, but once you get immersed and understand the time period and the culture, like it makes sense. Number 9 is, do you have any deal breakers in books? I think if there's like a heavy emphasis, or like maybe if the major plot is like an affair, cheating or whatnot. Not to say that infidelity cannot be portrayed well in books. I mean, like, it's something that does happen, and like it's obviously, there's a lot of complex emotions involved. It's just that I think this is also the reason why I tend to avoid like domestic thrillers or that type of genre. I haven't really read like a whole lot or anything, but I just get this feeling that the main conflict, the go-to conflict is, oh, there was an affair. Someone was cheating. And yeah, it just doesn't appeal to me, and I do kind of get turned off by it. So yeah. And I think another one, maybe like, ultra violence. I mean, I can read gore. Like that's no problem, but like maybe like ultra violence, especially towards like younger people, yeah, that could turn me off as well. Number 10 is, what's a strong opinion you have about a book released within the last year? I don't typically read a lot of new releases. However, I was pretty good with it this year. I'm going to be using this question to shout out this ongoing trilogy that I feel that not enough people are talking about, and that is the Lunar Gothic trilogy by Nathan Ballingrud. So the first book is Crypt of the Moon Spider, which I'm pretty sure came out last year, I want to say. And I am currently reading Cathedral of the Drowned. I'm almost finished with it. But yeah, I'm very impressed with this series. Very much impressed. It's gothic horror, but then it's also a bit of like alternate history because it does take place in the 1920s. However, it's sci-fi because it's the 20s, and yet there's like space travel. Like people take ships to go to the moon to harvest moon silk from a moon spider, basically. And I also really like that these two books especially dabble with cosmic horror. I mean, one of the elements of the story is that our moon is the skull, or a piece of the skull, of an eldritch being that used to, walk the avenues of the cosmos. I mean, that's perfect. I absolutely love that. That's fantastic. And Ballingrud has such a lush and evocative prose. Like the way he like captures the settings of these two books. Like this one takes place on our moon, and this one takes place on Io, which is a moon off of Jupiter, and it's like a jungle moon. So he's describing like the mist, the fog that wreaths the treetops, these volcanoes, and then the roiling seas, and Jupiter like a mad eye looking down upon the moon. Oh, it's so, so good. And once again, it is horror, and there is gore in here, but it's not like, I would say, so gratuitous. Honestly, the way he tackles horror here, there's like an elegance to it in a way. So yeah, I was very, very, very impressed with these two books. Like, he's able to deliver such an intriguing story, intriguing world in such a short amount of time. Like, these are very thin books, but I think he pulls it off, and I look forward to the third book. It's I think it's Kingdom of the Conqueror Worm, I believe, is the third book coming out next year. But yeah, just wanted to shout out these two books. Highly recommend it if you're into like, gothic horror, cosmic horror. Definitely check out Lunar Gothic Trilogy. Number 11 is What Do You Look For in Writing? So I definitely put a lot of stock into prose. That's why I'm a huge fan of Josiah Bancroft. I love his prose. So beautiful. I love a beautiful turn of phrase. I love the imagery that, a certain phrase can conjure up. I am not a fan of, the Hemingway type of writing where it's very direct and very sparse. If I have writing like that, oftentimes, I find myself, I'm reading, but my mind is kind of wandering off somewhere else. Beautiful prose helps keep my attention. I've mentioned this before, but it just keeps the neurons firing in my brain. It keeps my attention on the story, on the book, and I just love a gorgeous prose. And another thing that I look for when it comes to writing, and this is particularly with fantasy, with world building. I really love out there world building. I am completely fine with a fantasy series that, it's obviously meant to be this is just medieval Europe, but fantasy. Maybe this is ancient Rome, but it's fantasy. Maybe it's Viking Scandinavia, but it's fantasy. Those are fine, but I feel like, I don't know, the characters and the plot kind of have to work over time for me, to keep my attention. But yeah, an intriguing world that blends, that's not afraid to blend genres together, that's my jam. That's what I really love. That's what really fires me up. So I definitely look for that when it comes to writing, particularly when it comes to fantasy. Number 12 is How do you decide what to read next? I am a mood reader through and through. I can do TBRs. I've done so in the past, but I've never finished any. Maybe I'd stick to the first 2 or first 3 books, but then eventually I just want to read something that I want to read right now at that moment. Because, this isn't a job. Reading is my hobby, and I want to be constantly reading stuff that I'm excited for, that I love. So yeah, I'm always just kind of following the mood, and a lot of times it pays off. For instance, in the beginning of this year, I was scanning my TBR shelf, and my eyes landed on Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and there was just something inside of me that said, you know what, it's time. And so I picked it up and I read the whole thing, and it's one of my favorite books of this year. I think it might be still my favorite book of this year. We'll see. But yeah, I loved it. And I think a part of the reason why I loved it so much is that I was able to pick it up at the right time because the mood was calling for it and I followed it. So yeah. Number 13 is, where do you get inspiration for your booktube content? Once again, it really is down to the feeling. Sometimes I read a book and I'm so enthralled by it. I have so many feelings, thoughts about it that I need to let it out. Like, I won't know peace. I won't know any physical, mental peace unless I expel out my thoughts and my feelings in a video. And after that, I can like rest. So that's how I ended up with videos like my Engine Summer review or my Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell review. Maybe, I read a book and then I watch its film adaptation and I'm really excited about discussing the similarities and the differences, and that's how I end up with, my book and movie discussion videos. It's really the passion towards that particular story that drives the video. And, sometimes like my book hauls, I'm really excited about the books that I take in and I want to share. And so I just end up making a video about that. Really, it is the passion that kind of drives the booktube content, honestly, because like similar to my reading, I do booktube for the fun of it, to connect with other viewers, see if we have similarities, or maybe if we don't, and just have a chat. Number 14 is, if you could make any book go viral right now, what would it be? Definitely The Hexologist, A Tangle of Time by Josiah Bancroft. This is the second book in the Hexologist series by him. It's a fantasy mystery series. So if you're a fan of like Robert Jackson Bennett's the Leviathan series, you definitely need to check out The Hexologist. You got to. You're doing yourself a disservice. And what I love about this series is just Bancroft's ability to balance an intriguing mystery with stakes, but also delivering on this honestly cozy fantasy feeling. And I'm kind of going to go on a tangent talking about cozy fantasy. But for those who don't know, the Hexologists follow this couple, Iz and Warren Wilby, who are basically detectives that take on cases in this Jazz Age-inspired industrialized fantasy world. And what really makes this series stand out, especially when you compare it to like the Leviathan series, is just Bancroft's willingness to kind of like delve into the lives of our characters. He is not afraid for us to like follow the Wilbys in their day-to-day activities. He does put emphasis on characterization. You really get to know Iz, Warren, how they are individually and how they are together. And honestly, you can't help but fall in love with them. They complement each other so well, even though they have such differing personalities. Like Iz is much more, she's not a people person, much more sharp, prickly. Warren is basically a himbo that loves to cook, but they love each other. And that's another great thing about this series, is that it's featuring a married couple, and the relationship isn't dysfunctional. They're not at each other's throats. No, they're very happy. They're very much in love and content. And you really do get this warm, loving feeling, this cozy feeling when we're kind of following them in their domestic life. And I feel like it doesn't detract away from like all the exciting, mystery stuff that Bancroft is also portraying as well. I know that cozy fantasy has been getting a lot of popularity in recent years, but I am aware that there are some people who have been kind of dissatisfied with it. Like, they like the idea of cozy fantasy, but when they read it, they think to themselves, you know what, nothing's really happening and I kind of want to have some stakes. Well, honestly, if that's what you're looking for, I highly recommend the Hexologist series, because that's what it does. It does deliver on the cozy feeling, as we're following Iz and Warren together, but then there are stakes. There are stakes involved, especially in the second book. Like, I am genuinely surprised how Bancroft was able to kind of like balance that cozy with such like high, like world affecting stakes. It's just great on his part. So yeah, if you're into a fantasy mystery series, please check out The Hexologist by Josiah Bancroft. It came out this year. Obviously, it's a sequel, so if you haven't tried it out yet, pick up the first book, The Hexologists. And if you had read that and you hadn't picked up the sequel, please do so. It's fantastic. For the 15th and final question, who are some booktubers with reading tastes similar to yours? I would say Evie from She Was Only Evie. We both love Books of Babel, the Gormenghast trilogy, Persuasion by Jane Austen. I feel like out of all the booktubers I've met over the years, she and I have the most, we align the most when it comes to books. So yeah, I will link her channel down below. Please check her out. We actually did we had a discussion regarding Gormenghast, Titus Alone, Titus Awake. So if you're interested, go check out those videos. But yeah, give Evie a watch and a like. So that was the Get to Know My Reading Taste tag. Hopefully, to those who are new subscribers, you get a better understanding of my tastes, and you might have had like a sliver of what to expect on this channel. So yeah, thank you very much once again for anyone who's clicking on this video or watching or who's subscribed. As I mentioned, you know, greatly appreciated, very grateful for anyone who is just taking their time out of their day to watch me and my book content. So yeah, thanks so much. And until next time, whenever that will be, bye!